Alright, you are going to be making a solar car. One of the first things that you'll get is a kit. It's a plastic bag, a gallon Ziploc bag, and it will have instructions inside of the bag. And it will also have some parts for you to get started with your solar car. One of the very first things that you will need to do when you get your project bag is to take a piece of tape and put your partner and your name, any members of your team, put your name on your bag. Okay, we're going to look at the contents of your bag. Inside of your bag, you should have some instructions, a piece of corrugated plastic, a bag of gears and things that look like this. You'll also have a plastic straw, a wooden dowel. You will have a solar cell, a motor, and a little metal axle, and a little piece that looks like this. It's a very thin piece of metal, and you will have two tiny screws that look like this. Okay, two little screws, see them right there and there? And these are going to be all the things inside of your bag to help you get started with your solar car. I would recommend leaving the parts in the bag if you're not working on them, and always zip up your bag so you don't lose anything. If you keep your bag zipped, you won't lose anything. If you have your name written on the bag, no one's going to take your project. Alright, so step 1, it says follow figure 1 and cut the parts needed for the solar panel tower. The sizes are as follows. You need 4 pieces of the corrugated plastic, and they need to be 12 by 30 millimeters each. So you need 4 little pieces that look like this, which are 12 by 30 millimeters. Then you're also going to need 1 piece from the corrugated plastic that is 25 by 40 millimeters. I got a couple of things here that I need. I got a cutting board. I've got an X-Acto knife. I also have a ruler. You'll notice that on your ruler you have the inches side and the millimeter side. This is the millimeter side. I have marked on my corrugated plastic the 4 pieces that need to be 12 by 30. And I've made those right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each piece is 12 millimeters by 30 millimeters, and I was able to get 4 of those right here. So now what I'm going to do is cut them out. I'm going to be sure to place my pieces on the cutting board. One important thing to note, when you're cutting, try your best to cut away from you. You don't want to cut towards you, okay? And another thing to note is you might want to tuck your fingers so you don't nick your finger, okay? You know, like you see the chefs do on television, they kind of tuck their fingers like that. Just make sure your fingers are out of the way when you're making cuts. So you want to cut out 4 12 by 30 millimeter pieces of the corrugated plastic. I now have 4 12 by 30 millimeter pieces of corrugated plastic. Then you're going to want to measure out 25 millimeters by 40 millimeters. You need a 25 by 40 millimeter rectangle of the corrugated plastic cut out. One of the next things we're going to do is we're going to take this wooden dowel and we're going to measure it into 2 55 millimeter lengths. So I'm going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then mark it here for 55. Then I'm going to do that again. Let's see if I can get that. I am going to mark right here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 5 right there. So I should have 55 on here 2 55mm pieces of the dowel marked. So I've cut those 2 pieces down. These 2 pieces are, just like it says in the directions, 55mm. Okay, so now what we need to look for is hopefully your corrugated plastic looks similar to this. And I kind of want to have this groove right here exposed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of my dowels right in here. I'm just going to slide it in like that. So I'm going to glue that in real quick. Let me get a bead of glue, hot glue. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of center it and just sort of push it in like that. Okay? Doesn't have to be super exact, but you see how it kind of nestled into the corrugated cardboard right there? That's good, that's what we want. So I'm going to run another bead of glue right along here. And I'm just going to drop that in and push it in like that, okay? So you should have something like this, okay? That's exactly what you want. So what we're going to be making with this is we're going to make the platform for the solar panel. And that's kind of a little bit tricky. So the top part is going to be kind of tricky. So what you're going to have to very carefully do is try to just get one of these little pieces of the dowel here into the corrugated plastic. And it's okay if it looks like that, that's fine. But what I'm going to do is that right there, okay? Looks like I need some more glue. I'm going to put another bead of glue right there to get that to stick. Just like that. There we go. Okay? And this one right here, we are going to very carefully place that on there like that. And what you might want to do is get them onto the ends like that beforehand, and then run your bead of glue right here. Okay, get that put on right there. Okay, so we are making a movable platform here. These little pieces will move, so our little solar cell will be able to turn and face the sun. Now, one other thing you can do, and it doesn't have to be beautiful or anything, but you might want to take a little piece of tape and reinforce what you did here. Okay, so I got some tape right there. So that's going to help me keep my dowels in. And what I have is a nice little movable part right here. So then what we'll do here is you can put the feet on. You can either hot glue them down. So we'll put some feet here on the bottom. You can either slide those into the corrugated cardboard, or you can glue them down, it's fine. Really what you need to do is this top part right here needs to be able to move. So here I'll show you. I'm just gonna take and try to insert the peg here into the corrugated plastic. And it's kind of tricky. You kind of have to work it in. You might accidentally poke yourself, and that's okay. You just kind of want to, it's kind of like you're screwing it on like that. Okay, so now I have a nice little base for my solar cell. What's nice about having the dowels go into the corrugated part of the plastic there is that it's movable, which means we can move our solar cell to face the sun. Okay, so this is the solar panel tower. It should look like this. So for this part we are going to make the motor spacers, And for the motor spacers, we need 2 pieces of corrugated plastic cut out. Each piece needs to be 15 by 45 millimeters. So 2 pieces of 15 by 45 millimeter pieces, and get those both cut out. So now I've got my 2 motor spacers that are each 15 by 45 millimeters each. The next thing you are going to want to do is you are going to want to hot glue them together and make a sandwich. They need to be a double layer of 15 by 45 millimeter pieces of corrugated plastic. This is going to be for your motor. The spacer is needed to adjust the motor gear to the wheel gear, so it's going to come in handy later. So what do we have so far? We have this, and we also have this. Okay, see how I've sort of jammed the wooden dowel into here and here. Kind of looks like a weird little TIE fighter from Star Wars. Okay, this is going to be the solar panel tower. Here's the motor spacers. Next up, we are going to locate your aluminum strip, and what you need to do is draw a line 8 millimeters from the edge like this. So I measured 8 millimeters and then drew a line, and then on the other edge I drew another line going 8 millimeters in this way. Okay, so those 2 lines need to be 8 millimeters away from the edge, and what we're going to do is we are going to wrap this around the motor. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. One of the things I have here is I have my motor kind of right here, and I've got sort of the middle of the piece of aluminum right there. And what I'm going to do is just kind of bend this around very carefully. And what you are going to want to do is make sure that the little 8 millimeter marked side that you have is sort of going to be where the crease is. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do this side like so. Okay, so you're shooting for something that's going to wrap around your motor like that. And what's going to happen is we're going to take this and mount this onto here. Okay? Okay, we are going to locate the solar motor gear right here, and we're going to place it onto the shaft here of the motor. Okay, and you can kind of very carefully push, and it will just snap on there kind of like that. Okay, that's what we're going for. So we're going to get some holes drilled on the side here, and then some holes drilled here, and what we're going to do is have your motor get mounted to this. You'll screw it in. Okay? So those little screws will get lined up and screwed in right there, and this will get mounted to that. So what I'm doing is I'm screwing this in to the corrugated plastic just like this. I've got the little hole. I lined up the hole here with this hole like that, and then I inserted my screw, and then I'm just gonna start just getting it worked in right there. And one thing you want to do probably is make sure your motor is in there before you screw the second one down. Okay, so I'm gonna slide that in. You might want to have the wires going down like this. You're going to line up those two little holes. You are then going to get your screw, and you want to get it started. I got it right there. Okay. And also one thing you can keep in mind is that sometimes screwdrivers have magnetic tips, so that'll help you get started as well. And you can just start working that in. Okay. So here you can see on the side, see how the screw is working its way in to the corrugated plastic, just like that. And I'm just screwing this down. I'm getting my motor mounted to the motor spacer. So, should look something like that. Okay. You will probably want to have that slid out just a little bit so that that can freely spin. Okay? So that's what you're looking for. So now we're going to start talking about the chassis for the solar car. What you need to do is measure 204 millimeters by 75 millimeters. Fortunately, this length right here is 75 millimeters. So really all you have to do to get the chassis or the body measured is measure this part. You need to do 204 millimeters. So now we're going to need to talk about the chassis. You're going to have these sort of areas where you're going to cut out where the wheels will go. So what you will need to do is here you'll kind of measure about 16.5 millimeters in on this side, and then also again on this side you'll measure in about 16.5 millimeters, and then what you're going to do is measure up here 46 millimeters. So you have a rectangle on this edge that is 16.5 millimeters by 46 millimeters, and again on this side. And you'll see that each of the four corners of the corrugated plastic, this whole thing is 204 millimeters by 75 millimeters, and you have these little squares, or I'm sorry, little rectangles on each corner that are 16.5 by 46 millimeters. Okay, and what you will do is then you'll cut these out. Also notice that I have the corrugated cardboard as such. This is going to be good for when we insert the straw for the axle. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start cutting these away. Okay, try to cut away from you. I know sometimes you'll probably have to cut towards you, but it's a good rule of thumb to try to cut away from you. Okay, and if you can, try to keep your fingers tucked as much as possible. Okay, now I've got my four corners cut out. Again, each one of these pieces was 16.5 millimeters by 46 millimeters. I've removed those. Now something you can do is you can sort of round the edges as best as you can. Okay, and sort of get them to be rounded. This is sort of what you'll have. I've rounded the edges as best as I can. Okay. So now we're going to get the front wheels. These are the front wheels. The difference between the front wheels and the back, the front wheels do not have gears. The gears are on the back wheels. So I've got the two front wheels here, and we get the front axle here, and I'm just gonna kind of, you know what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this wheel and sort of slide it on right here. Okay, and just give it a little bit of pressure so that it stays put. That feels pretty good. And then what you'll do is you'll kind of slide this in to one of those holes like so, and you will then attach the other wheel. And you can play around with how far forward you want the wheel and the axle, the wheel and the axle in the front. Okay, so I might decide to put mine up really close. So you just get those attached, give it a little pressure, you'll have something similar to this. So then you'll put the back wheels and the back axle on the back, like so. You just give it a little bit of pressure like that, okay? There it is. So now what we want to do is we want to mount the motor on the back. Now remember, the wheels that have the gears are the ones on the back. So I would recommend having your wires face towards the front. So what you can do is you can put a little bit of hot glue on here, and it's okay to use a lot. And what we will do is we will mount this so that it engages the wheel, okay? Because we want, when that motor spins, we want it to move the wheel, okay? So you can kind of test this out and see if it engages the wheel there. Okay, if it's not far enough over, you can slide it over a little bit. Okay, so you're looking for something like that. When this gear spins, it will engage the wheel and move. Now again, take a look. I have my wires pointing this way. Try not to mount it so that your wires are facing backwards. Okay, that might be problematic later. So now we're going to mount the solar cell tower, which is this thing. What you can do is put some glue at the bottom here and try to mount this towards the middle. And this will be good because if you mount it towards the middle, you'll have enough room to angle your solar cell back and forth like so. Okay, so this is like a movable platform that you'll be able to angle your solar cell to catch the sun. Then you're going to be ready to attach the solar cell to the top of the solar cell tower. What you can do is run a couple beads of glue right there, and I would have your wires facing towards these wires, and you just want to kind of plant your solar cell right here on top and give it a little pressure. Okay, and you'll see it's mounted on top. And what's great about this solar tower is you can move it back and forth to catch sunlight. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to connect the black wires together, and you'll see you can just kind of intertwine them. That should be sufficient. One of the things I'm going to do is take some wire cutters here, or wire strippers. I'm just going to bend this down. So I've got sort of this little hook I'm making right here. And what I'll do is I will kind of get these two to kind of intertwine and wrap together. Well, it's going to take a little finesse. You might have some trouble doing this. If you do, just come see me. We'll see if we can take care of it. Okay. And you might want to get your wires tucked, okay, out of the way. Let me take it outside and test it. Okay, so I've got my solar car here. I've got my connections, or 2 red wires and 2 black wires connected together. If it rolls the wrong way, you can reverse the connection. One thing that I had to do is I had to loosen this up. Okay, so don't be afraid to sort of move the motor in and out, and also pull that up away from the motor a little bit to get it to move correctly. So you might have to do some troubleshooting when you actually go out into the light. So what happens when you go out into the light is that the solar cell will automatically start converting the sunlight into energy and spinning the gears and engaging the wheel. So if everything goes okay, Should work fine.